Hi, my name is Chris Farr. I'm a life group shepherd and volunteer worship leader at Urbana Grace Church in Urbana, Ohio. But as you can see out my window, we're not in Urbana anymore. My wife and I, who has been kind enough to drive, we're on our way to the Grand Canyon. Due to some technical difficulties, I wasn't able to film the intro that I wanted to at a busy airport. But thanks to digital technology, which is what we're going to talk about in this video, I'm able to kind of pivot and restart this intro and the outro of this video, where I talk with Ben Eckstein. He's a family pastor in Cincinnati, Ohio, with a church called Red Door, and we're going to talk about how technology has affected his ministry and just the way that he has seen the gospel being able to be spread in these past several years, particularly post-COVID. So thanks for tuning in. Check this out.
And my name is Ben Eckstein. So I am in my 5th year of full-time ministry. I've done so many things in my lifetime. I've lived a full life I was in the Army for a time. I was a high school teacher before I kind of received that call. In that role, my responsibility, my church is called Red Door Church. We're just on the north side of Cincinnati in a city called Fairfield. My position as family pastor is I basically am in charge of, it's got names, several names are like next gen pastor or family pastor. Those are kind of used synonymously. I'm more of the family pastor role, which is I oversee all of our teams that are involved with any programs, events, anything related to children's ministry, student ministry, or family and parent ministries. I did. I came on staff June 1st of 2019, and I'd never served in ministry. So it was kind of like I had this grace period where I was just getting my feet wet, like kind of figuring out, how does ministry work? How do I start building teams and starting to make movement? And then COVID, the whole pandemic hit. And we were a church plant that we didn't have a building of our own at the time. We were just in the process of purchasing one. We were meeting in a school. And so when all of the lockdown type stuff started, we got a call from the school saying you can't meet here anymore. We're canceling all rentals. So we were immediately homeless. We did not have a home. We had purchased, but it was under construction. So we never had any live streaming before that. We had some people who worked kind of in the film industry. So we would make a lot of our own kind of videos, and we had capacity to edit together some little fun videos to promote events and things like that. So we were kind of using technology, but when the pandemic hit and we got locked down and we had a building that was under construction, so we couldn't meet there, we couldn't meet in the school, it was immediately we have to figure out live streaming, and we have to figure it out right now. So we were able to mobilize some different guys who there were people in our church who were not active in using some of their gifts and talents. They weren't serving, but because of connections that they had to other people who were able to say hey, I know this guy streams video games, he streams himself, you should talk to him about what he does. And we were able to bring these people in who had knowledge that we as a staff did not have, and they were able to say, okay, you want to do this well, you got to buy these cameras, you got to have this connection, you got to run these things. It was cool to see people who didn't previously feel like they had a place to bring their personal gifts and talents to bear for the kingdom. All of a sudden it was no, you're the man. You
right.
Are the man
That's
of the
awesome.
hour. We need you right now because we don't know what we're doing, and you've got the expertise to bring to bear. And so that was really cool to see coming into the pandemic.
And that's super cool. Getting people with those giftings that are kind of non-traditional. Right. I guess you would say.
Yep.
Say no, you've got a place here. There's you've got a calling on your life, and this is how you use it for the kingdom. That's awesome.
that we are not creating an environment where people cannot participate when they're not able to be in person, but never trying to make it an environment that replaces meeting in person, but just as that stopgap measure, that it's there to allow us time for healing or whatever is needed, or traveling, whatever's going on, that it gives us the technology to continue to be in fellowship with people who cannot be in person for a time for one reason or another. Everything's online. And anybody who's ever like led worship and kind of spontaneous, kind of like speaking, leading through a song, or you're preaching a sermon and some thought comes to you just kind of off the cuff outside of your script that you say, like, everything now exists online, and you're now opening yourself up to massive amounts of scrutiny and disagreement and division that can spring up in these online spaces. People can take things out of context and incorrectly. And so I think that's one area where, I've seen that happen, especially kind of with more of the like larger kind of mega church spaces where people will have an axe to grind against a certain, leader. Also can allow people, and you'll have the people who will come in and sit in the pews and just consume and not participate, not be a participant in the gathering of the saints, but just sit and like, how can you minister to me?
Right.
You have that in
kind
the
of consumerist.
Yep. Yeah. You have that in the pews in person, but I think it just makes it that much easier for people to do that online, where it's especially with live streaming and digital content. You've got people like, oh, well, this very prevalent online preacher, that's my pastor. It's like, well, you don't actually belong to their church at all. They don't know you exist. You're just watching the sermon live stream. Like that is not belonging to a body. That's just consuming a TED Talk, basically. Yeah. It's just a spiritual TED Talk. Yeah, I think just, as I've thought through, I'd ask you like, oh, to explain more of the meta church. I'm sure I know what it is. I've just not heard that reference. And so after like looking through some of that, like realizing like every church is kind of in this meta church movement. Some are like intentionally chasing
to some degree.
And some are like begrudgingly like in it just because that's the world we live in. So I think there is the penchant for people to feel connected when it's not true connection, that they feel like they are part of something, but it's from afar, it's at a safe distance. I think it sets up people who can realize like they're not actually connected and they're hurt by that, or they get to an area of struggle, and when you get into a struggle, the talking head on your screen is not much help. You need someone to walk through that with you. And if you don't have that connection with someone, then you're, I think, way more likely to just walk away from your faith, because there's nobody there to walk you through it, and you're left to do that on your own. Being very intentional with how the technology is used, being intentional about what the purpose of doing that thing, I think, is key for church leaders to go through in their own ministries, because I think it can just, if you're not, you're gonna use it, you're gonna go somewhere with it, so you need to decide where it is you want to go, because you'll end up somewhere, and it's either where you chose to be or where the kind of the world took you. And I think that's in parenting, in our walk with Christ, in how we use technology, and all of it.
Thanks so much for watching here today. I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen in. If this was beneficial for you in any way, let me know. I hope that at the very least caused you to maybe examine what next steps you and your ministry can take into reaching people in new places and new spaces. I think it's really important to remember what Pastor Ben just said, in that the digital is a great tool, but it should never replace the physical gathering. Jeff Reed coined the phrase the fidgetal. It's this combination of the digital and the physical elements of your church coming together ultimately for the glory of God, for people living in community. Hannah and I used a lot of digital tools to get here today. Google Maps and Siri, and lots of searching and trying to figure things out that led us here to the Grand Canyon, where we met Fred and Patty, who were spreading the ashes of their 2 deceased children, and we got to sit in on that solemn moment and just offer prayers and comfort with them. It wasn't intended, but that is the combination, the tools of the digital coming to bear on the physical reality of the church. So that's where I want to keep going. I hope that you can take next steps in your ministry to go into new places and reach people in new spaces, and ultimately bring more glory to the God that we serve.